Jocko was great, and I loved Jocko when I met him too. Jocko got that mid-range sound then, but because of Jocko, the bass took on the identity as being a solo instrument. Now that's what Jocko did for the bass. I mean, Stanley Clarke was no slouch either on electric bass, you know. So, but John got that bass, that great jazz sound on the electric bass. But you know, a lot of people don't know it, but one of the first players of the electric bass was, let's say, was Montgomery.
Right.
He went on the road with Lionel Hampton's band playing electric bass back in the 50s. Yeah, he's the first one that used electric bass, I think, with a big band. Sounded good too, you know. So, if you get the right jazz sound. And of course, when you're playing walking lines on bass, here again, you've got to practice your chordal notes. You've got to know where those chordal notes are so you can go, for instance, See, you've got to know those chordal notes so you can build hills and valleys in your walking, see, and get the right sound, and you don't go. I had a guy come over from the UK that learned some of these tunes, and he was. You know, so I said, no, long. So you got a jazz lick here, E flat 7s, E flat 7, move it up 3 frets. It's the same chord.
Can you break that down and explain that?
Okay, you're moving it like a diminished chord. So you ba ba do be de de be be do do de de ba. See. So major, minor. See. See. So there's a way of moving chords around 3 frets, and you're saying the same chord in the sense, the 2 and the 5, or just the 5 chord. See. So that's just jazz stuff that all the jazz players know how to teach and how to do. Not so much today because it's non-chordal today. It's note scales, see. Note scales don't get it because they will ruin your ear and your fingers get used to playing scales and you can't find those notes. So it's important to practice your chordal notes.
So
you're not hearing this. You're not hearing these notes. You need to hear the intervals of the chordal notes that you can use, including the substitute chord notes. You know. Chords are formed by every other note of the scale. You know, nobody back in the 50s played note scales. You know, note scales are traveling notes. Traveling notes, but mostly in jazz, you're going to use chromatics. See, I'm chromaticing. Chromatically, is that a word?
It is now.
Yeah. See, that's all F. You know, this is F. I'm playing off of these chordal notes. Same pattern off of these. See, now I'm playing off of these chordal notes. I'm creating a pattern off the chordal notes. You don't get that from note scales. It used to be that we played bebop every night. If you weren't working every night, you'd go out and jam somewhere, you know, in the 50s. And occasionally I'd be playing with the group and somebody had asked to sit in and said, oh no, don't let him sit in, he plays scales. Because we all knew that you can't find those jazz patterns. That's not a scale pattern, see. This, you have diminished runs. The days of wine and roses. So forth. You can. Those are not scales. That's from these notes. you're doing your parallel fourths to them and stuff like that. But you can't find those notes from note scales. And those are the patterns that all the jazz players have used. And they still use that. You don't learn that so much in school because, unfortunately, you have a lot of former rock players that never played jazz in the 50s that didn't know all this stuff. At one school that I was teaching there for a while, I had to be careful because the head of the school was a very important fellow and nice fellow. He meant well. He just didn't know that 75% of the chords of all the standards ran cycle for a while. And I was sitting there biting my tongue for about an hour. And he was trying to explain how chords move. And I finally stood up and said, look, if you learn your cycle, you'll automatically know most of the chords of the standards. And then he reiterated, oh yes, of course, if you know your cycle, then you know. So it's so simple to a person who played that. And it's a shame that they're teaching all these note scales as a way of learning jazz, and that's not the way to do it.